The rain had a way of making the city look honest. Neon smeared across wet glass, taxis hissed along the boulevard, and every light on the skyline reflected back at itself in the puddles. Lily Turner pressed her forehead to the cold window of the bus and pretended the rain could wash away the numbers spinning at the back of her mind. Debt notices, hospital bills, rent. Every figure felt like a weight on her ribs. The bus jerked to a stop. "Last station," the driver called. Lily blinked and grabbed her backpack, hugging it close as she stepped out into the damp night. She had never been this close to the financial district before. She only knew it from headlines and glossy videos on screens in the electronics shop where she used to work. Up there, in glass towers that stabbed the sky, people like him lived. Alexander Voss, a name sounded like something from a movie, unreal and distant. CEO of Voss Holdings, youngest in the company's history, ruthless in negotiations, and unnervingly private. The agency had said the job was simple: live-in maid, strict confidentiality, generous pay. Enough to drown at least half of the debts if she stayed 1 year. Enough to buy her mother time. Lily stepped under the awning of the Voss residences. The building rose above her like a sheer wall of light and stone, white marble and dark steel. 2 large glass doors framed by black columns, a discreet gold plaque that simply read VOSS. No ads, no slogan. The kind of place that didn't need to introduce itself. Her sneakers squeaked on the polished floor as she entered the lobby, trying not to stare, but failing. The air smelled faintly of lemon and something colder, cleaner, like rain on metal. A chandelier spiraled up into the high ceiling, all thin rods and warm bulbs shimmering like captured starlight. Behind the front desk, a receptionist in a navy suit looked up. Her hair was sleek and dark, her expression professionally empty, until her eyes landed on Lily's simple jeans, worn backpack, and damp ponytail. Then something flickered, assessing but not unkind. "Good evening," she said. "Can I help you?" Lily swallowed. I'm here for a position, live-in staff. The agency said Mr. Voss's personal residence. She fumbled in her backpack and produced the envelope with the agency's letter, stamped and signed. The receptionist scanned it, then her expression changed entirely. Not warmer exactly, more careful. "You're early," she said. "Most new hires arrive in the morning." "The last bus was cheaper," Lily said, before she could stop herself. The receptionist's lips twitched, almost a smile, then smoothed out. "Very well, Miss Turner. I'll contact the household manager. One moment." Lily stood in the middle of the lobby with her backpack clutched to her chest, suddenly aware of how out of place she was. A man in a tailored suit walked past, talking quietly into a headset, not even glancing in her direction. Somewhere deeper in the building, she heard the soft whir of an elevator, and for a second she imagined she could feel the entire tower breathing around her. All the quiet, expensive systems keeping it alive. "Miss Turner?" The receptionist's voice snapped her back. "Mr. Hargrove will meet you upstairs, penthouse level." She handed Lily a temporary access card. "Tap this at the elevator and select P. And a tip." Her gaze softened. "The household has rules. Listen before you speak. You'll do fine." Lily nodded, murmured a thank you, and walked to the bank of elevators. Her reflection stared back at her from the mirror-bright doors. 23 years old, small, too pale from too many late nights, brown eyes that always looked a little worried, even when she tried to smile. She tugged her ponytail tighter and raised her chin. For Mom, she reminded herself. For the bills. For not having to choose between medicine and rent this month. The elevator door slid open without a sound. Inside, it was even quieter, a tiny capsule of brushed steel and soft music. Lily tapped the card, pressed P, and watched the numbers rise. 28, 29, 30. The doors opened to a corridor that did not look like anything meant for the public. No artwork, no decorations, just smooth gray walls, recessed lights, and a single dark wooden door at the end. Waiting in front of it was a man in a black suit, with silver hair and an upright posture that made him look like part of the architecture. His tie was perfectly straight, his shoes spotless. "Miss Turner," he said, voice smooth as polished stone. "I am Edward Hargrove, household manager and personal assistant to Mr. Voss. Welcome." "Thank you," Lily said, trying not to sound as nervous as she felt. She dipped her head slightly out of habit, then realized it might look strange here and straightened quickly. Edward's eyes flicked to the movement, but he said nothing. "First, we will go over the rules," he said, gesturing toward the door. "Then, I will show you your quarters. Tomorrow morning, we begin training." He pressed his hand to a small black panel beside the door. It blinked blue, and the lock clicked. Lily's breath caught as the door swung open to reveal the world she had only seen in photos and dramas. The penthouse was not what she expected. She had imagined glittering opulence, crystal and gold everywhere, the kind of place built to show off. Instead, it felt like stepping into a still, private lake. Quiet, minimalist, dark wood floor, white walls, tall windows running from floor to ceiling, revealing the city spread out below like a galaxy of lights. A few pieces of art hung on the walls, abstract, all bold strokes in empty space. The furniture was modern, low and clean-lined in shades of charcoal and cream. Everything looked expensive, but in a way that didn't ask for attention. This wasn't a palace for impressing guests. It was a fortress. "You will be part of the internal household staff," Edward said as he led her inside. "This residence is not open to the public. No guests, no events, no parties. That is rule number 1. Nothing that happens here leaves here. Confidentiality is absolute. You signed the agreement?" "Yes." Lily tapped the envelope in her hand. "At the agency." "Good. Rule number 2. Mr. Voss values order and silence. You will keep noise to a minimum, particularly near his study and bedroom. You do not enter those rooms without explicit instruction. Ever." A flicker of unease ran through her. What if he needs something? "He will call," Edward said. "There are internal comm systems in each staff area. You answer promptly, you do as you're told, and you do not ask unnecessary questions. Rule number 3, the schedule. You will wake at 6, begin cleaning at 6:30, and finish your primary duties by early afternoon. Laundry, common areas, kitchen support. You will be trained thoroughly. There is a chef and a part-time chauffeur. You answer to me. Understood?" Lily nodded, trying to memorize everything. She had cleaned hotel rooms, small apartments, and a dozen odd jobs in between, but nothing like this. "Yes, Mr. Hargrove. You may call me Edward, if you prefer," he said, "but never in front of Mr. Voss." They passed through the living area, where the city lights painted shifting patterns on the floor. Lily couldn't help slowing down to look. From here, the people and cars below were reduced to tiny moving specks, like an abstract painting come to life. She wondered, absently, if this was what the world looked like to a man who signed deals that moved millions with a pen stroke. Small, far away. "Do not linger near the windows during working hours," Edward added without looking back, as if he could sense the way her attention drifted. "Rule number 4. You are here to work, not to admire the view." Her cheeks warmed. "Yes, sir." He showed her the kitchen. Large, stainless steel, immaculate. the smell of coffee faint in the air. The laundry room, a small sitting area for staff that felt almost like an afterthought, tucked into the back corner of the floor. Finally, he opened a door next to the service entrance. "This is your room." It was small, but surprisingly comfortable. A single bed with white sheets, a narrow wardrobe, a tiny desk, and a window that looked out over the city's darker side. Rooftops, alleys, the backs of buildings. Lily stepped inside and ran her fingers over the smooth surface of the desk. It was more space than she'd had sharing a room with her cousin and her cousin's 2 children. "It's nice," she said softly. "I'm pleased you think so," Edward said. "There is a uniform in the wardrobe. You will wear it during working hours. Off hours, you are free to wear your own clothes, but you do not leave the penthouse without permission. For your safety, and for the household's discretion." Lily's fingers tightened around the strap of her backpack. "Am I allowed to call my mother?" "Personal calls are allowed in your room, outside of working hours," he replied. "However, you will not discuss details of your work or Mr. Voss's private life. This is also in your contract." "Yes, I understand," she said quickly. She would tell her mother only that the job was safe, the pay was good, and the boss was demanding. That was probably true, no matter what. Edward checked his watch. "It is late. You will have a short rest, then I will bring you the schedule for tomorrow. One more thing, Miss Turner." She looked up. "Yes?" His gaze sharpened. "Mr. Voss is not an easy man, but he is fair. He prefers competence to flattery, honesty to excuses. If you make a mistake, you admit it and correct it. If you lie," he let the sentence hang in the air like a quiet warning. "Do not lie." Lily's heart thudded in her chest. "I won't." "Good." He inclined his head. "You may unpack. I will return shortly." When the door clicked shut behind him, the small room seemed suddenly very quiet. Lily sat on the bed and let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Her hands were shaking. She pressed them together in her lap until they steadied, then pulled out her phone. 2 missed messages from her mother. "Are you there yet? Is it safe? Eat something, don't be stubborn." Lily smiled despite herself and typed back quickly. "I'm here. It's huge, like in the dramas. My room is small but nice. I'm safe, Mum. Please sleep. I'll send money as soon as I get the first paycheck. Remember to take your medicine." A moment later, the typing dots appeared, then her mother's reply. "I trust you. Don't overwork. If they treat you badly, come home." Come home to what? Lily thought, staring at the words. To overdue notices and a landlord running out of patience. To a pharmacy receipt she couldn't afford. She swallowed and typed, "I'll be fine. I promise." Then she set the phone aside and opened her backpack. Clothing, folded as neatly as possible. A little pouch with her toothbrush, comb, and a cheap bottle of vanilla-scented body wash. At the bottom, wrapped in an old scarf, was the only thing she owned that felt truly precious. A small silver pendant on a thin chain. It was shaped like a narrow crescent, not quite a moon, not quite a blade, with tiny patterns etched along the curve. Her father had given it to her on her 7th birthday, pressed into her palm with rough fingers and a rare, soft smile. "It's older than both of us," he'd said back then. "Promise me you'll keep it, no matter what." She had kept it. Through moves, through fights, through the day he walked out and never came back. Through every job, every late night, every tear she didn't let anyone see. Lily threaded the chain through her fingers, then clasped it around her neck, tucking the pendant under her shirt where it rested warm against her skin. She always felt braver with it on. A knock at the door made her jump. "Come in," she said, voice smaller than she wanted. The door opened, but it wasn't Edward this time. A woman in her 30s with a neat bun, kind eyes, and the soft lines of someone who smiled easily stood in the doorway, holding a folded bundle of grey fabric. "You must be the new maid," she said. "I'm Rosa. I handle the mornings and help Edward with the general upkeep. He asked me to bring your uniform." "Ah, thank you." Lily stood up quickly and dipped her head. "I'm Lily." Rosa looked her up and down with open curiosity, but without the cool distance of the front desk receptionist. "You look younger than the others he usually hires," she said. "First time in a place like this? Is it that obvious?" Lily blurted, then flushed when Rosa laughed. "Only a little," Rosa said. "Don't worry. It's strange at first for everyone. Just remember the rules, especially about not going near the study unless Edward says so, and you'll be fine." Her smile dimmed slightly. "He doesn't like surprises." "Mr. Voss?" Lily asked. "Both of them," Rosa said. "Mr. Voss and Edward. But Edward at least uses full sentences." She handed Lily the folded uniform. "Try this on. If it doesn't fit, I'll adjust it." The uniform was simple, a grey dress, knee-length, with short sleeves and a small white collar, plus a black apron that tied at the waist. Functional, not frilly. Lily changed quickly in the tiny bathroom attached to her room, then stepped out, feeling suddenly smaller and more exposed. Rosa walked around her, tugging gently at the fabric here and there. "Not bad," she murmured. "I'll shorten the hem a little. You need to move easily." "Shoes? I only have bees," Lily said, pointing to her sneakers. Rosa clicked her tongue. "We'll find you proper black shoes from storage in the morning. For now, sneakers will do. Better than blisters on your first day." She hesitated, then lowered her voice. "He's not usually here this late, you know, Mr. Voss. He prefers to stay at the office until night becomes morning. Tonight is different." A little chill prickled along Lily's arms. "He's here now?" Rosa nodded. "Came back 2 hours ago. No announcements. No one in a good mood when he came through either. You could feel it in the air." As if summoned by his name, a soft chime sounded in the hallway. A low, mechanical tone, almost like a doorbell, but sharper. Rosa stiffened. "That's the study," she whispered. "He's calling Edward." She handed Lily a small, thin device about the size of a lighter with a single button and tiny speaker. "You'll get one of these tomorrow, internal comms. When that goes off in your room, you answer immediately and say, 'Yes, sir,' or 'Yes, Mr. Hargrove,' depending on who calls. Got it?" Lily nodded, gripping the device as if it might bite. The sound stopped as quickly as it had begun, leaving a strange hush behind. Rosa smiled again, softer this time. "Don't worry, first nights are always the worst. Tomorrow you'll be too busy polishing, dusting, and folding to be scared." She patted Lily's shoulder. "Try to sleep. Edward hates sleepy staff." After Rosa left, Lily changed back into her own clothes, folded the uniform carefully on the chair, and lay down on the bed. Sleep did not come quickly. Every creak of the building, every hum of distant machinery made her eyes snap open. Somewhere above or beside her, a door opened and closed. Footsteps, measured, heavy enough to be heard through the walls, walked past, faded, then stopped. She imagined a man with a face she'd only ever seen in a news article. Sharp suit, sharper jawline, eyes like dark glass. Alexander Voss. She wondered what kind of person lived in a place like this, alone in so much space. She wondered if he ever looked out at the city and saw the bus stops and grocery lines and hospital hallways his decisions touched. Or if from up here, people became numbers on a report. At some point, she fell into a shallow, restless sleep. She dreamed of elevators that never stopped, corridors that looped back on themselves, doors that opened onto endless empty rooms. She was running through them, uniform shoes slipping on polished floors, always hearing a voice she couldn't quite make out calling her name. The sound that woke her was real, sharp, insistent, vibrating on the little metal table beside her bed. Lily blinked at the ceiling, disoriented, then realized what it was. The comm device Rosa had left. It pulsed with a soft white light as it buzzed again. Her heart jumped into her throat. She grabbed it, pressed the button with clumsy fingers, and lifted it to her mouth. Yes? She stammered. There was a brief hiss of static, then a voice, low and precise, rolled through the tiny speaker. That is not the correct way to answer, Ms. Turner. It wasn't Edward. Lily froze, every cell in her body going very, very still. She had never heard this voice before, but she knew, absolutely and immediately, who it was. The tone carried something that didn't need introduction. Absolute authority. I'm sorry, Mr. Voss, she managed, sitting up so fast the blanket tangled around her legs. Yes, Mr. Voss. A pause, as if he were weighing each syllable she'd just spoken. Better, he said. You're awake. Yes, sir. Her pulse thundered in her ears. She glanced at the time on her phone. 1:12 a.m. You arrived tonight instead of tomorrow morning, he said. Why? The question caught her off guard. The last bus was cheaper, sir, she blurted before she could think of anything more polished. There was a small stir of air through the speaker, the hint of a breath that might have been a laugh if it had contained any warmth at all. Cheaper, he repeated. You chose to arrive in the middle of the night, to a stranger's home, because the bus was cheaper. When he put it like that, it sounded reckless, almost foolish. Lily's face burned, even though he couldn't see it. There was no point lying. Edward had told her that much clearly. Yes, sir, she said quietly. I needed to save money. Another silence. She could almost hear him thinking, gears turning behind that controlled voice. Get dressed, Miss Turner, he said at last. Uniform. You will meet me in the study in 5 minutes. Her stomach dropped. Now? Is there something about 5 minutes you do not understand? He asked, tone still calm, but edged with steel. Or shall I have Edward explain it to you again? No, sir, Lily said quickly. I understand. 5 minutes. The line went dead. For a heartbeat she just sat there, device still pressed to her ear, panic flooding her veins. Then she moved. She scrambled out of bed, dragged on the uniform, fingers fumbling with the buttons. Her hair was a mess. She yanked out the tie, ran her fingers through it, and twisted it into the neatest ponytail she could manage. In the mirror over the tiny sink, her eyes looked too wide, but there was nothing she could do about that. She glanced down at herself. Grey dress, white collar, bare feet. Shoes. She shoved her feet into her worn sneakers, uniform be damned, and bolted out the door. The corridor was dim, lit only by the subtle strip of light running along the floor. The penthouse was a maze of quiet shadows at this hour, the earlier warmth replaced by a cooler, almost clinical stillness. Lily tried to remember the path Rosa had taken her on. Left past the kitchen, right through the living area, then down the hall lined with abstract paintings. At the end of that hall, a set of double doors she hadn't seen opened before. She stopped in front of them, heart pounding against her ribs like it was trying to escape. She raised her hand to knock, and the door swung inward on its own. The study was larger than her entire apartment back home. Dark wood shelves lined the walls, filled not with clutter, but with care. Books arranged by height and color, a few pieces of sculpture in metal and glass. One wall was entirely glass, looking out over the now sleeping city, a river of faint lights cutting through the darkness below. A large black desk sat near the window, sleek and minimal, holding only a laptop, a phone, and a crystal glass with a small amount of amber liquid. And him. Alexander Voss stood beside the window, back half turned to her, phone in his hand, suit jacket discarded over the back of a leather chair. He wore a white shirt rolled to the elbows, the top buttons undone. Even from the doorway, she could see the tension in his shoulders, the controlled line of his spine. His reflection in the glass looked like a second, ghostly version of him, staring back at the city with the same cool distance. "Come in," he said, without turning around. His real voice, without the distortion of the speaker, was smoother, but no softer. Lily stepped inside, shutting the door quietly behind her. She moved closer, stopping a respectful distance from the desk. She clasped her hands in front of her to keep them from trembling. "You asked to see me, sir." He turned then, slowly, as if he had all the time in the world. His gaze swept over her, and she understood suddenly why people described him as dangerous. It wasn't his face, though that would have been enough. Strong jaw, high cheekbones, dark hair that fell just a little too long over his brow, making him look younger until you saw the eyes. It was the way he looked at her, not with curiosity, not with impatience, but with a sharp, assessing focus that felt like it could peel away layers. "I did," he said. Up close, she noticed a thin, pale scar just below his throat, partly visible where his shirt was open. A straight line, like a blade had kissed him once and changed its mind. "You will find that I do not like variables, Miss Turner. People arriving early are variables. Explain why I was not informed." I'm sorry," Lily said. "The agency arranged my transport, but they allowed me to change the ticket. I didn't think it would be a problem if I came early and just stayed in my room. I didn't mean to cause trouble, sir." Trouble. The word sat oddly in his mouth, as if he were tasting it. He walked around the desk, each step silent on the polished floor, and stopped closer to her than she expected. Not invading her space, but close enough that she could see the faint shadows under his eyes, the fine tension at the corner of his mouth that didn't match his smooth tone. He smelled faintly of clean soap and something sharper, like cedar. "Look at me when you speak," he said. She forced herself to raise her eyes. They were darker than she'd thought, almost black in this lighting, and unreadable. "You thought," he repeated quietly. Interesting choice of words for someone who has been here less than 3 hours. "I won't make decisions like that again without telling Mr. Edward," she said, correcting herself. "I'm sorry." For a heartbeat, she was certain she had already ruined everything. That he would order her to leave, that she would be out on the wet street again before dawn, that the bus fare she had saved would be swallowed by the first overdue bill she couldn't pay. Panic buzzed at the edges of her thoughts. "Do you always apologize this quickly?" he asked, head tilting slightly. "You haven't actually done anything wrong yet." Her mouth opened, then closed. I was told you don't like surprises." That earned her the faintest shift in his expression, the ghost of a smile that was more like a shadow than sunlight. "Edward talks too much," he murmured. "He's not wrong, though." He stepped around her slowly, as if inspecting a painting from different angles. "The agency screened you thoroughly," he said. "No criminal record, good performance reviews in menial positions, lower than average salary history, no significant savings. Mother ill, father absent." The last word felt like a small knife. "They told you all that?" she asked, unable to keep the hurt out of her voice. "I don't allow strangers into my home," he said simply. "Not without knowing exactly what they might cost me." His gaze dropped, just for a moment, to the faint outline of the pendant under her uniform. What is that? Lily's hand flew to her chest automatically, fingers closing around the shape through the fabric. Just a necklace, she said quickly. Sentimental, not expensive. I can take it off if it's against the rules. Something flickered in his eyes then. A flash of something that was not cool, not controlled. Recognition? No, that was impossible. He looked at her face more closely, as if seeing it for the first time. For a moment, she had the strangest feeling that he was looking not at her, but at some memory superimposed over her features. No, he said at last, voice slightly rougher. You can keep it. Just keep it under the uniform. The guests don't come here, but habits are habits. Yes, sir, she whispered. He walked back to the window, picking up the glass but not drinking from it. This building runs on systems, Miss Turner, he said. Security systems, cleaning systems, financial systems. People, too, become systems if you know how to place them. You will be one part of that system. You will keep this place in order so that I don't have to think about it. In exchange, you will be paid on time without fail. You will have a roof, food, and a contract that protects you as long as you obey the rules. Do you understand? I do, she said. Then here is one more rule that Edward forgot to mention. He turned his head slightly, eyes catching hers in the reflection of the glass. Never enter my study without being called. Never. If you see this door open and no one has summoned you, you will walk away. If you hear raised voices, you will not listen. If you think I might need something, you will wait until you are called. The intensity in his gaze made the hairs on her neck stand up. Yes, sir, she said. I won't. Good, he set the glass down. You can go back to your room. She blinked. That was it? Her heart was still racing, adrenaline still humming in her veins. You only wanted to ask about the bus? The question slipped out before she could stop it. His eyes narrowed slightly, but not in anger, more like curiosity. I wanted to see whether the person I read about in the file and the person standing in my house were the same, he said. And to confirm one other thing. What thing? She asked before she could tell herself to stay quiet. His gaze dropped to her pendant again, then to her eyes. That you're not afraid of me enough to lie, he said softly. You were terrified enough to tell me the truth. That is useful. Lily wasn't sure if that made her feel better or worse. I don't like lying, she said, voice barely above a whisper. And I can't afford to lose this job. Honesty driven by desperation, he said. We'll see how long it lasts. He turned away completely then, the conversation clearly over. 5 a.m. wake up tomorrow. Edward will give you your full list of chores. Don't be late. She hesitated a second longer, wanting to ask 100 questions. Why was he awake at this hour? Why was there a scar on his throat? Why did he look at her necklace like that? But his posture made it clear. The moment she stopped being useful, she was invisible again. Lily bowed her head slightly. Good night, Mr. Voss. He didn't answer. She slipped out of the study, closing the door as quietly as she could behind her. The corridor felt even emptier now, the silence pressing against her ears. She let out a shaky breath she'd been holding on to since the comm device first buzzed. Her legs felt weak, and she had to lean against the cool wall for support. In her room, she shut the door and locked it, even though she knew the real protections in this place were digital and invisible. She stripped off the uniform, hung it carefully, then touched the pendant under her shirt again. For a second, she considered unclasping it and hiding it in her backpack. The way he had looked at it unsettled her, but the chain felt like a promise against her skin. She left it where it was. Lying back down, Lily stared at the dark ceiling. Exhaustion tugged at her inside. But now there was something else too, threading through the fear and uncertainty. Curiosity. About the man in the glass tower who woke maids at 1 in the morning to ask about bus fares, about the scar he wore like a secret, the way his eyes had sharpened at the outline of a little silver crescent. She had come here to clean floors and polish surfaces, to pay bills and buy medicine. But as sleep finally dragged her under, one stubborn thought refused to fade. There was something strange about this place, about him, about the way their first meeting had unfolded, like a test she hadn't studied for but somehow passed. Lily didn't know it yet, but Alexander Voss had noticed something too. Not just her honesty or her desperation. When she had stepped into his study, clutching at the shape under her uniform, the world had shifted for him in a way he hadn't felt in years. In the reflection of the glass, for a heartbeat, he had seen another face over hers, another pair of eyes, another crescent of silver. A past he had carefully buried, suddenly staring back at him from the small, terrified maid who had taken the cheap bus. And for a man who hated variables, that was the most dangerous thing of all. The alarm on Lily's phone buzzed at 5 a.m., slicing through a sleep that had felt more like falling than resting. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. The ceiling was too smooth, the air too clean, the faint hum beneath the walls too steady. Then the events of the night before slammed back into place. The penthouse, the uniform, the comm device, Alexander Voss's voice in her ear. She sat up too fast and groaned as the room tilted. You chose to arrive in the middle of the night, because the bus was cheaper. Heat rushed to her face at the memory. Wonderful. First time meeting her new boss, and she had sounded like a clueless child clutching coupons. Still, he hadn't fired her. That counted for something. She swung her legs out of bed and forced herself to stand. The floor was cold against her bare feet, the city outside still more shadow than light. She washed quickly in the tiny bathroom, pulled on the gray dress and apron, and tied her hair back in a tighter ponytail than last night. The pendant rested against her collarbone, hidden but solid, a small weight that made her feel like herself inside all this unfamiliar gray. A soft rap on the door made her jump. "Yes?" she called, tugging the apron straight. "Good, you're up." Edward's voice carried through the door, calm and unsurprised. "Kitchen in 10 minutes, Miss Turner." "Yes, Mr. Hargrove." She grabbed her sneakers, hesitated, then shoved her feet into them. She'd get the proper shoes later. For now, she needed to be fast more than she needed to be polished. The corridor was brighter this time. The floor strip lights dimmed as the natural light from the wide windows slowly intensified. The city outside was smeared in gray-blue, a few stubborn lights still glowing against the softening dark. The penthouse felt different in the early morning. Less like a fortress and more like a sleeping beast, just beginning to stir. In the kitchen, stainless steel gleamed under recessed lighting. Rosa stood at the counter, tying an apron over her own gray dress. A large industrial coffee machine hummed nearby, filling the air with the scent of dark roast. Edward leaned against the far counter, tablet in hand, a mug of coffee by his elbow. He looked like he'd been awake for hours already. "Good morning," Lily said, then immediately wondered if she should have waited for them to speak first. "Morning, Lily," Rosa said with a real smile. "You look less terrified than last night. Progress." "Only because my legs are too numb to shake," Lily muttered before she could stop herself. Edward's mouth twitched. It might have been the ghost of a smile or a small muscle spasm. With him, it was hard to tell. "Humor has its place, Miss Turner," he said, "just not in front of Mr. Voss." He set his tablet down with precise care. "Today is observation and basic tasks. You will shadow Rosa, learn the layout, then handle the second-tier chores on your own this afternoon." "Second tier?" Lily echoed. Dusting, linen changes, stocking supplies, maintaining the guest rooms even though they are rarely used, Edward said. The chef handles most of the cooking. Rosa and I handle service when necessary. You will assist as needed, but your primary function is maintaining the environment so that Mr. Voss never has to think about it. Lily nodded. Yes, sir. He slid a slim digital device across the counter to her. It looked like a mix between a phone and a walkie-talkie. Your permanent comm unit, he said. Number 1 is my line. Number 2 is Rosa's. Number 3 and 4 are security and the chauffeur. When any of those flash, you answer immediately. If line 0 flashes, that is Mr. Voss. You answer that one faster. She swallowed. Yes, Mr. Hargrove. Try not to sound like you're about to faint when he calls, Rosa added gently. He already has enough fun scaring board members. I'll do my best, Lily said, though her stomach knotted just looking at the little device. Edward handed her a thin printed sheet. Daily schedule, standard routine. Mr. Voss's movements are highly predictable unless something unexpected happens. We adjust around his calendar. Lily scanned the list. 6 a.m. Living room and hallways. 7. Dining area reset. 8. Office level dusting. The times marched down the page, each line neat and unforgiving. Near the bottom was a section labeled Restricted Areas. Study, no entry. Master bedroom, no entry unless summoned. Server room, no entry. Private gym, only when vacant and cleared. You will memorize these today, Edward said. Any questions? A dozen bloomed at once in Lily's head, everything from, why does he need a server room in his house, to, does he sleep at all? She swallowed them. No, she said. Good. Edward's gaze skimmed over her uniform. Shoes. Rosa said we'd find some from storage? Lily said. We will, Rosa said. After breakfast prep. He doesn't care what's on her feet as long as she's quiet. Mr. Voss notices more than you think, Edward said without looking at her. Best to be precise from the beginning. He checked his tablet. He has an early call at 7. Breakfast tray at 7:30. Rosa, you'll handle that. Lily will accompany you to observe. Lily bit the inside of her cheek. 7:30. That meant in an hour and a half she'd be standing within arm's length of him again, this time carrying coffee like she wasn't afraid of spilling it all over his bed. All right, Rosa said briskly. Willie, come. We'll start with the dining area. Edward, try not to terrify her before 8. I make no promises, he murmured, already back on his tablet. The next hour blurred into a series of tasks that all smelled like cleaning solution and adrenaline. Wipe surfaces with the special streak-free cloths. Dust the corners of frames, but never the frames themselves. Straighten the dining chairs so their backs aligned perfectly with the table edge. No scented products in the main living areas. Mr. Voss disliked artificial fragrance. No loud clinking of dishes in the kitchen between midnight and 6 a.m. Mr. Voss's bedroom wall shared a line with the hidden service corridor. He hears everything, Rosa warned, showing Lily how to stack plates in a way that minimized sound. Not because he's listening, just because he's used to nothing out of place. Any noise that doesn't belong bothers him. Like a glitch in his system, Lily said under her breath. Exactly. Rosa straightened a fork by a millimeter. You'll find he's the same with people. When 7:25 rolled around, Lily's palms were already damp. The breakfast tray looked like something from a hotel ad. Porcelain coffee cup on saucer, silver carafe, a small plate of sliced fruit arranged in a gradient, a dish with exactly 2 pieces of toast, crusts trimmed. A separate small bottle of dark liquid sat near the edge. What's that? Lily asked. Cold-pressed ginger shot, Rosa said, for his throat. Lily glanced at the faint scar she'd seen the night before in her memory. Because of nothing you need to repeat, Rosa said quietly. We don't speculate about his personal history. We don't gossip. We certainly don't repeat what we overhear, if we overhear anything at all. Right, Lily said, chastened. Sorry. You're fine. Rosa's voice softened. Just be careful. People like him live in a different kind of world. Mistakes here cost more than a broken plate. They wheeled the tray to the service elevator and rode it up one floor. The doors opened directly into a smaller corridor with softer lighting and thicker carpet. The air felt different here too, cooler and quieter, like the building itself held its breath. His suite, Rosa whispered. The door at the end of the corridor was a darker wood than the others, with a subtle pattern carved into it, almost like a fingerprint. Next to it was a small panel with 2 buttons. Rosa pressed one. A soft chime sounded. They waited. Lily's heart thudded a nervous rhythm. She imagined him on the other side, finishing some high-stakes call, irritated at being interrupted by toast. A small light above the panel turned green. Rosa nodded, took the tray from the cart, and balanced it effortlessly. He's expecting us. You stay 1 step behind me, eyes down, silent unless spoken to. Don't look around the room. Don't look at him if you can help it. Ready? Definitely not. Yes, Lily whispered. Rosa knocked twice, then opened the door. The suite was spacious but not ostentatious. A continuation of the penthouse aesthetic. Clean lines, muted colours, light pouring in from floor to ceiling windows. The bed was perfectly made, its charcoal duvet unrumpled. A seating area with a couch and low table sat by the windows, currently occupied by the man himself. Alexander Voss was not in a suit this time. He wore a plain black t-shirt and dark joggers, bare feet resting on the floor. A laptop sat open on the table in front of him, a headset around his neck. He looked strangely younger like this, less like the curated monster of headlines, and more like an insomniac who'd forgotten to sleep for a few years. As they entered, he glanced up, eyes flicking to the tray, then to Rosa, and finally to Lily. If he was surprised to see her, it didn't show in his face, but something sharpened in his gaze. Good morning, Mr. Voss, Rosa said in a smooth tone. Breakfast. You're early, he said, voice rougher than last night's. He cleared his throat once, as if that would scrape the sleep from it. Call ran short? Yes, sir. Rosa set the tray down on the table with practiced grace. Your ginger shot, coffee, fruit, and toast. You forgot the poison, he murmured, picking up the small bottle of ginger. Rosa's face didn't change. We're still looking for a supplier, she replied. Lily choked on a breath, caught between a laugh and a cough. Alexander's eyes flicked to her at the sound. Up close, in daylight, they were a deep, cool brown, not the bottomless black she had imagined, though they might as well have been for all the warmth they held. You're recovering from last night, I see, he said. Ms. Turner, isn't it? For a split second she considered lying, saying, Yes, sir, and leaving it there. But she heard Edward's warning in her head. Don't lie. Yes, Mr. Voss, she said. Then, because nerves made her stupid, she added, I'm not used to being awake at 1 a.m., and I don't usually have millionaires asking about my bus choices. Rosa made a strangled noise. Lily bit her tongue. Too late. Alexander's jaw twitched, a tiny betrayal of amusement or annoyance. She couldn't tell which. Billionaire, he corrected mildly, picking up the ginger shot. And you should consider getting used to it. Not the bus, the hours. He tossed the ginger back in one swift motion, barely reacting as it hit his throat. Rosa, you may go. Leave, Ms. Turner. Lily's stomach plummeted. Rosa shot her a quick look, sympathy, warning. It was all compressed into one tight little glance, then bowed her head and slipped out. The door clicked softly behind her. Suddenly, the suite felt much larger and completely too small at the same time. Relax, Alexander said, pouring coffee into the cup. If I intended to fire you, it wouldn't happen before caffeine. She didn't quite know what to do with that sentence. She settled on standing very straight and clutching her hands together so tightly her knuckles ached. Yes, sir. He took a sip of coffee, watching her over the rim of the cup. His eyes drifted once, briefly, to her collar, as if checking that the faint outline of the pendant was still there. Then he set the cup down and leaned back in his chair.
Did you sleep?
Some, she said. The alarm came early. You'll adjust, he said. People adapt when they don't have another choice. That landed with a little too much weight to be casual. Lily suspected that came from somewhere far more personal than a generic comment about schedules. I wanted to make one thing clear, he said. Last night, if you are to stay here, when I call, you come. Immediately. But you do not anticipate my needs. You do not appear unless summoned. You do not hover. The moment you begin to think you understand what I want before I say it, you become dangerous. To you? She asked. To yourself, he replied. People who think they know what I want tend to overestimate how much I owe them. There was probably a trail of ex-staff and ex-business partners who could confirm that. I understand, Lily said. I'll just follow the rules. That would be a refreshing change, he murmured, almost too low for her to hear. You may go. She blinked. That's all? Did you want a longer conversation at 7:31 in the morning? He asked. Because I'm afraid I only schedule those for board members and regulatory officials. No, sir, she said quickly. Enjoy your breakfast. I'll try, he said, already reaching for a piece of toast. She backed toward the door, resisting the urge to turn her back on him. When her hand finally closed around the handle, her shoulders relaxed a fraction. Miss Turner. His voice stopped her. She looked back. He hadn't moved, but his gaze was fixed on her face with unsettling intensity. Yes, Mr. Voss? Next time you answer my call, he said, start with yes, Mr. Voss, not yes. It saves time. Heat crawled up her neck. Yes, Mr. Voss. Good, he said. Go. In the corridor, Lily let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Her legs wobbled slightly as she walked back to the service elevator. Rosa waited by the cart, eyebrows raised. You're still employed, she said. That's something. Barely, Lily muttered. I think I accidentally implied he was only a millionaire. Rosa winced. Oh dear. He corrected me, Lily said, to billionaire. They shared a brief, incredulous look. Then Rosa shook her head with a little laugh. Of course he did. The rest of the day settled into an exhausting rhythm. Lily trailed behind Rosa, absorbing a flood of instructions. Which cleaning products could be used on which surfaces, how to log completed tasks on the household system, which doors led to storage, and which led to areas she should pretend didn't exist. Twice she saw Alexander only in passing, once crossing the main living area in a navy suit, talking quietly on the phone. He didn't glance at them, but the air seemed to tighten as he walked through, like the room recognized him. The second time, late afternoon, He stepped out of the private gym in a fitted black shirt, sweat darkening the fabric at his chest and throat. Lily looked away so fast she nearly collided with a side table. Rosa's hand closed around her elbow, steadying her. "Eyes on the dust, not the man," Rosa murmured. "Trust me." By the time evening approached, Lily's feet throbbed, her arms ached, and her brain buzzed with the penthouse's map. She had to admit, though, there was a strange satisfaction in seeing a space go from slightly disordered to perfectly controlled. Every pillow squared, every surface reflecting light just so. In her old jobs, she'd cleaned clutter. Here, she was maintaining precision. It was terrifying, but there was a part of her that liked the clear expectations. Do this. Do it exactly like this. If you do, you stay. After dinner, an event she and Rosa handled like a military operation involving timing, temperature, and invisibility. Edward dismissed her to her room. 7 a.m. start tomorrow, he said. You did adequately. Adequately, Lily translated, meant you didn't break anything or get fired on your first day. She'd take it. Alone in her room, she peeled off the uniform, massaged her sore calves, and called her mother. "Lily?" Her mother's voice came through the speaker, hoarse but brighter than it had been in weeks. "How was it? Are you okay?" "I'm fine," Lily said, leaning back against the wall. "It's big, Mom. The place is huge and everything is shiny and quiet. I spent all day cleaning things that were already clean." Her mother laughed weakly. "Rich people." "Yeah," Lily hesitated. "The boss is intense." "Does he shout?" "Not yet," Lily said. "He just looks at you like he knows how many cents are in your bank account, which he probably does." "You don't have to stay if it's too much," her mother said. "We'll manage." They would not manage, but Lily smiled anyway. "It's okay. The pay is worth it. And I have my own room, my own bed." "I'm happy you have that," her mother said softly. "Remember to eat, and don't let them walk all over you just because they have money." "They're not walking," Lily said. "They're more like gliding silently." Her mother laughed again, then coughed. They talked for a few more minutes about medicine and neighbors, and her mother's insistence on watering the plants herself, despite the neighbors' offers. When they said goodbye, Lily's chest felt tight but steadier. She lay down, the pendant warm against her skin, and closed her eyes. She didn't realize she had drifted off until she woke with a start to a noise. At first, she thought it was the comm device vibrating again, and her heart leapt into her throat. But the comm lay dark and silent on the nightstand. The sound came again, faint but distinct. A soft, repeated clink, like glass tapping something hard, followed by a muffled curse. It was coming through the wall. Lily frowned. The wall to her right backed onto a storage room. She'd been in it earlier. Shelves of supplies, stacks of linen, a small sink. But the sound seemed to be coming from beyond that, lower down. She sat up, listening. A dull thump, another sharp clink, and then something that sounded suspiciously like coughing. Her first thought was, someone's fallen. Her second thought was, this is none of your business. Do not move. Remember the rules. Her third thought shoved the others aside. What if someone's hurt? Lily grabbed her lightweight cardigan, slipped on her sneakers, and cracked her door open. The corridor was dim. House lights had shifted into their nighttime setting. She stepped out, every sense on high alert. It was probably nothing. a bottle knocked over, a malfunctioning pipe. The building had staff and security. Edward would know if something was wrong. Except, what if he didn't? What if some automatic system had failed? That was ridiculous, she told herself. This was the Voss residences. Nothing failed here. The coughing came again, rougher this time. Not imaginary. Not a system, a person. Lily moved, feet silent on the floor. The storage room door was slightly ajar. She pushed it open and peered inside. Empty. Shelves stood in neat rows, shadows stretching between them. The sink gleamed in the corner. The sound was louder here, though, and clearer. Someone trying not to cough and failing. It was coming from the floor, near the back wall. Lily stepped closer and noticed, for the first time, a narrow door half hidden behind a tall shelving unit. The door was metal, painted the same grey as the wall, with a small keypad to the side. Someone had slid the shelf just enough to squeeze through. The door now sat slightly open. Cool air seeped out from the gap. Every rule in her contract lit up in her head like a row of red warning signs. Restricted areas, no entry, wait to be called, don't anticipate needs. She could turn around, go back to bed, pretend she hadn't heard anything, or she could be the sort of person who let someone choke to death in a hidden room because the rules said, do not enter. Lily slipped through the gap. On the other side, a steep, narrow stairwell led down into the building's innards. Dim emergency lights traced the steps, painting everything in a faint red glow. The air smelled different here, cooler, drier, with a hint of metal and machines. The coughing echoed up the stairwell. "Hello?" Lily whispered. No answer. Only another cough and something that sounded like a glass hitting metal. She descended carefully, one hand on the rail. At the bottom of the stairs, she emerged into a long, low corridor lined with racks of servers. Tiny lights blinked on black boxes, the air filled with the soft, constant whir of cooling fans. It felt like standing inside a mechanical brain. In the middle of the corridor, hunched over near one of the racks, was a man. For one wild second, Lily thought security had somehow let a criminal into the building. The man's hair was messy, his black t-shirt creased, his bare feet incongruous against the industrial floor. He held a glass of water in one hand, the other braced against the side of a server rack as he coughed hard enough to bend double. It took Lily a heartbeat too long to recognize him out of context. The CEO of Voss Holdings was crouched on the floor of his own server room, hacking his lungs out at 2 a.m. "Mr. Voss?" The words slipped out before she could stop them. Alexander's head snapped up. His eyes were darker in the dim light, pupils blown. He stared at her like she was a hallucination. For a second, the coughing stopped. "What are you doing here?" he managed, voice shredded. "You shouldn't..." He broke off in another violent cough, the glass slipping in his hand. Water splashed onto the floor, the glass clinking against the metal rack as he fought for breath. Something was wrong. Lily had heard coughing all her life, her mother's light hacking when her lungs were bad, her cousin's kids' fake coughs to get attention. But this sounded different, deeper, strained, wet in a way that made her stomach clench. "You're choking," she blurted. "Or having some kind of attack. You need..." "I don't..." he tried, but another spasm hit and he doubled over, one hand now pressed against his throat, eyes squeezing shut. The scar stood out stark against his skin, flushed and tense. Lily moved before she could second-guess herself. She closed the distance between them in 3 quick steps, heart pounding. "Sit down," she said. "You're going to fall." "I'm sitting," he snapped between coughing fits, but he let her guide him back until his back hit the cool metal of the server rack. His legs stretched out awkwardly in front of him. "Where is Edward?" "Not here," she said. "Just me." "Wonderful," he rasped. "The universe has a sense of humor after all." His eyes watered from the force of the coughs. He lifted the glass again, hands shaking, and spilled as much as he drank. Lily grabbed the glass gently, steadying his hand. "Small sips," she said. "You'll choke more if you gulp." "I know how to drink water," he bit out. She almost snapped back but checked herself. He was scared. He was trying very hard not to look scared, and that was somehow worse. "Okay," she said instead, calmer. "Then prove it." He glared at her, coughed again, and actually managed to get a small sip down. The coughing eased slightly, but his breathing stayed ragged, pulling at his chest in uneven bursts. He pressed the base of his throat with his thumb, just below the scar, as if trying to hold something in place. "Did you take something?" Lily asked. "Medicine? The ginger shot, or—" "Wrong pipe," he said hoarsely, talking during the call. "Water went where it shouldn't. It happens." He said it with a practiced flatness that made it sound like an excuse he'd used before. "People don't usually end up on the floor for that," Lily said, more sharply than she intended. His gaze snapped to her. There it was again, that intense, evaluating look, cutting through her as if she were transparent. "I'm not people," he said. "I had surgery, years ago." His fingers tapped the line of the scar once, a gesture so quick she almost missed it. "Things get complicated sometimes. It will pass." Maybe it would, but his hands were still trembling. "A doctor on call?" "I have an entire medical team on call," he said, a hint of his usual dry tone slipping back in. "If I needed them, they'd be here." He tried to lever himself up, but his arm buckled. He made a frustrated sound. Lily caught his shoulder on instinct. The contact made he was not as untouchable as he looked from across a boardroom. He was just a man in a server room, out of breath and trying not to show it. "Don't move yet," she said softly. "You're dizzy." "You're in a restricted area." She wasn't sure if it was another suppressed cough or another one of those shadow smiles. He tried to take a deeper breath, then winced. "Too fast," Lily said. "You're forcing it. My mom has lung issues. If she breathes too fast, it just makes everything like—" She demonstrated, breathing in quietly and then exhaling in a long, controlled stream. He stared at her like she had asked him to tap dance. "You're teaching me to breathe?" "Clearly you need the help," she said, her tone gentler than the words. His eyes narrowed like he was about to argue, but then he tried it. The first inhale sounded rough, prickling her nerves, but he managed to count along under his breath. 4 in, 6 out. Again. Again. Each time the cough tried to claw its way back up, he paused, swallowed, adjusted. After a minute, the raggedness smoothed out a flexion. His shoulders lowered. Most people in your position would be halfway back to their room from this angle, sitting on the floor with his leg. Instead, he reached up, slowly, deliberately, and touched the collar of her dress. Her breath hitched, but she didn't move. His fingers were cool against the fabric as he slid them under, just enough to hook the chain of the pendant. Gently, he drew it out into the open. The silver crescent glowed faintly in the red server light, its etched patterns catching the dim brightness in a way that made them seem deeper, older. For a heartbeat, the air in the room changed. Alexander went very still. His face tightened, the color draining in a way that had nothing to do with lack of oxygen. Where did you get this? His voice had dropped lower, each word careful and edged with something dangerous. Fear? Anger? Lily's fingers flew to the pendant, closing around it protectively. His hand brushed her knuckles. My father, she said. He gave it to me when I was 7. Your father, Alexander repeated, eyes dark and intent on her face now. What is his name? Daniel Turner, she said slowly. Why? Do you know him? The question had hovered at the edges of her mind since last night, since the way he'd looked at the outline of the pendant in his study. He released the pendant, and it fell back against her chest with a soft tap. Whatever had flashed across his face a moment ago disappeared behind a practiced mask. No, he said. It was too quick, too flat. For a man who hated lies, it sounded suspiciously like one. It's just a pendant, then? Lily asked, searching his face. To you? Something flickered again, there and gone. Nothing is just anything in my world, he said. But this is not a conversation we're going to have on the floor of a server room while I'm half choking. He braced his hands on the floor and pushed himself up. This time, his arms held. He swayed only slightly. Instinct made Lily reach out again. He caught her wrist before she could touch him, his grip firm but not painful. I'm fine, he said. You should not be here. I heard you, she said, stubborn. You didn't sound fine. There are people on staff specifically trained for medical emergencies, he said. You are not one of them. If something happens, you notify Edward. You do not run into restricted areas like a film extra with a hero complex. You were choking, she repeated, annoyance flaring now that the immediate fear had passed. I did notify someone. You were the someone. His lips parted, then closed. He stared at her for a long, uncomfortable moment, weighing something only he could see. You broke 3 rules in 10 minutes, he said finally. Congratulations. You can punish me later, she said before her brain caught up. Her face flamed. I mean, about the rules, not... Oh God, kill me now. The corner of his mouth lifted more clearly this time. I'm aware of what you meant, he said, amusement threading through the exhaustion in his voice. Don't say punish and later in the same sentence around me, Miss Turner. People might misunderstand. People like who? She asked, flustered. We're in a locked server room. You'd be surprised, he said. He walked slowly towards the stairwell, his bare feet silent on the floor. Lily hovered a half step behind, ready to grab him if he stumbled. Mr. Voss, she said, quieter now. Are you going to fire me? He stopped at the base of the stairs and turned to face her. The red light painted strange shadows across his features, turning him into something almost unreal. You heard something and followed it, he said. You disobeyed protocol, but not out of malice or curiosity. You were inconveniently brave. That sounds like the kind of thing bosses hate, Lily said. Depends on the boss, he replied, and how much they value being able to breathe. His gaze softened by a fraction, as if some internal verdict had shifted. For now, no. You're not fired. Relief hit her in a dizzy wave, her knees weakened. Thank you, she said. However, he added, and there it was, the blade back in his tone. If you ever enter a restricted area again without authorization, I will make sure you never work in this building or any building I own again. Do you understand? Yes, Mr. Voss, she said quietly. Good. He started up the stairs, slower than he might have otherwise, but with determination. Halfway up, he paused. "You will not mention what happened tonight to anyone," he said without looking back. "Not Edward. Not Rosa. No one." The sick feeling in her stomach returned. "Because you don't want them to know about your throat?" "Because my vulnerabilities are currency," he said, "and I do not trade in weakness." "I'm not going to sell what happened to a newspaper," Lily said, offended. "I'm not that kind of person." "You don't have to be," he said. "Secrets leak in 100 small ways, from slipped words, from worried looks. People connect dots they're not supposed to see. The safest secret is the one that doesn't exist." He glanced back over his shoulder. "But since this one does, you'll keep it. That is not a request." She met his gaze, something stubborn rising in her chest. "You saved my job tonight," she said. "I won't forget that. And I won't tell anyone. I'm good at keeping things quiet. I've been doing it my whole life. About the bills, about her father leaving, about the nights she'd cried into her pillow so her mother wouldn't hear." He held her gaze for a moment that stretched a little too long, then nodded once. "Go back to your room, Miss Turner. Get some sleep." "What about you?" she asked before she could stop herself. He hesitated. "I have work to finish." "You just nearly stopped breathing, and your solution is more work?" she asked. "You sound like my mother." His expression flickered, just slightly, at the word mother. "Then your mother is a persistent woman," he said. "I'm fine." It was not the kind of fine that meant okay. It was the kind that meant, "I have decided this conversation is over." He continued up the stairs. At the top, he stepped through the disguised door without looking back, leaving her in the dim red glow. Lily climbed after him, heart pounding with a strange mix of anger, worry, and something else she didn't want to name. In the storage room, everything looked ordinary. Shelves, supplies, a mop bucket in the corner. The secret door, now closed flush with the wall, keypad dark. If she hadn't seen it open, she would never have known it was there. She slipped back into the corridor and padded to her room. Her hands shook as she shut the door. She slumped back against it, sliding down until she sat on the floor. "What are you doing?" she whispered to herself. "You've been here 2 days and you've already seen your boss choke in a secret server room." She laughed once, a small, hysterical sound. Normal people clean bathrooms and maybe see their boss at the Christmas party. Her comm device lay on the nightstand, dark and silent, oblivious to the drama that had just unfolded in the building's hidden veins. She picked it up, thumb hovering over Edward's line. He had said not to report. She had promised not to. Still, the urge to tell someone, to ask, "Is this normal?" clawed at her. She set the device down. Her word mattered. It was practically all she had. She changed back into her sleep shirt, fingers grazing the pendant as she pulled the dress over her head. The silver crescent was warm, almost hot, against her skin. "What are you?" she murmured to it. "And why does he look at you like that?" The pendant, predictably, did not answer, but somewhere in the penthouse, in a study lined with glass and secrets, a man sat at a black desk and stared at a photograph he hadn't looked at in years. It had been locked in a drawer beneath folders of contracts and deals, buried under the weight of the life he'd built. Now it lay in front of him, the past dragged into the light by a maid with stubborn brown eyes and a silver crescent around her neck. In the photograph, a younger Alexander Voss stood between 2 other people, a laughing woman with the same eyes and a man with a smile as sharp as a blade. Around the woman's neck hung a pendant, narrow and crescent-shaped, etched with the same patterns Lily's necklace had just reflected in the red server light. His fingers hovered over the image, tracing the familiar shape without touching it. "It can't be," he said softly to the empty room. "Too many coincidences." That was the problem with variables. Once they entered an equation, they changed more than their own place. They altered everything around them. Alexander hated variables. He had built his world to eliminate them. But as he sat there, throat still aching faintly where the old surgery pooled, he knew with the cold, sharp certainty he reserved for hostile takeovers that Lily Turner was not just another maid. She was an anomaly, and every anomaly came with a cost.